Alright, Chronojet returned once again in the D series, this time as fighter icons, and I'm actually kinda excited about this, so let's begin. But first off, before we start with the ride line, here are the triggers for the card of the days, which are all Chrono icon, which will be preferred to be played in the deck, and I'm glad that they brought these cards back. Which also includes the PG as well, which I'm actually pretty happy about that now we have a Chrono icon version, just a second printing of it, which is also kinda weird at the same time. But anyway, here's the starter, which is of course Chrono Dran, this time as Chrono icon. And then we go to the Grade 1 Wiki Power, Mazer Gear Dragon, Chrono icon, which has the skill, auto when placed by riding on top of Grade 0 with a Chrono icon, cost, reveal Grade 3 Chrono icon from your ride deck, draw 2 cards, choose a card from your hand, and put it to the bottom of the deck. Which is of course good early game filter, but the second skill is Act Drop. If your Vanguard is a Chrono icon and your opponent's Vanguard is at least Grade 3, cost, put this card from the start of the game back to the ride deck face up in your ride deck, and then choose one of your rear guards and put it to the bottom deck, and then search your deck for one unit card that is one grade higher than that chosen unit and call it to rear guard, and plus 5 key power at the end of turn. Of course, shuffle your deck. Find it a bit funny that instead of giving the time lead ability to basically your grade 0 into a forerunner, they decided to give it to the grade 1, considering what they did to the other fighter icon units. But basically, the time lead ability can only be used once, as it has to be the original copy that was from the ride deck to put face up. And also another huge thing is that this one doesn't give Crest, meaning the Encounter Chronojet deck cannot actually make use of this. But strides will still be a thing for this deck. And then we go to the grade 2 with 10 key power, Smoke Gear Dragon, Chrono icon, which has a skill, auto, when rolled upon by a grade 3 Chrono icon, cost, Soul Boss 1, search your deck for up to one grade 3 card, reveal it and put it in your hand, of course shuffle your deck. With the second skill where count Rear Guard Guardian, Generation Break 1, if your Vanguard is a Chrono icon, this card gives a 5 key power and 5 key shield. Basically the same as the Encounter Smoke Gear Dragon, except it's for Chrono icon with an added skill, 5 key power and 5 key shield. So already better than the original, it's just too bad that this one's actually restricted to only Chrono icons, while the other one isn't. And now we go to the grade 3 with 13k power, Chronojet Dragon, Chrono icon, which also doesn't have a Persona ride icon by the way, and it's 13k base power, unlike the Encounter one still being 11k base. But anyway, you cannot ride this card if your Crest has any other cards besides the energy generator, so meaning that you cannot even add the Chronojet Crest with this. With the main skills where count Vanguard, you can stride during your turn, and if your G-Zone has at least one card, your whole front row gets us 5k power, but if it has at least 3 cards, plus 10k instead. Basically, this is now your way to stride instead of using your Crest to stride. And instead of using your Crest to power up your rear guards, you're going to be using your main Vanguard instead. Although do keep in mind, if you stride on top of it, it means that you do lose the power up ability, which is a little unfortunate, but you will unstride and then actually still get the power up ability in some way. But the timing does matter when it comes to that power up ability. But also keep in mind, since this stride is also on a skill, if something deletes it like Blackmire, you unfortunately cannot stride. So you will need to ride into another Chronojet and stride, as striding is not allowed unless you have a Crest or an ability to actually let you stride. With the next main skill where Auto Vanguard, when your G unit strides on top of this, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and put it to the bottom deck, but if you fail, you draw a card, which is actually a very nice added bonus compared to the original, and also it's free compared to the original. With the last skill being Auto Vanguard, Generation Break 2, when this card attacks a Vanguard, for every Chronojet in your bind zone, this unit gets 5 key power, and your opponent cannot use any grade 1 or higher to guard this attack into the end of the battle. So similar to the original Chronojet Dragon, but with some added stealth. Still has the rewind ability, but also the guard restrict, but with some extra restrictions and some extra power, but also in a way free as well. And in a way, this actually kind of reminds me of the V counterpart, because the V counterpart with the pseudo stride ability is on your main grade 3, thus this card has the stride ability on its main grade 3, while still retaining its G counterpart of its rewind and guard restrict, and letting you actually stride, so it's a combination of V and G, which I kind of like. But still, there's not much to say about this card, as everything really revolves around its strides. But anyway, to the main support, starting off with Steam Scar GG Chrono Edition, which is a grade 1 wiki power, and the skill is auto when placed on rear guard. If your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Chrono icon, this unit gets us 5 key power in turn, which makes it a 13k attacker or booster. With the second skill where auto rear guard, at the end of this unit attacks or boosts. If your Vanguard is a Chrono icon and you stride during the turn, cost, put this to soul to draw a card, which is definitely very good for the deck, especially to combo off with another card in this set, and being a big beater will be necessary for this card. And also because it is Gear Chronicle, clearing up your board is also pretty helpful. And then we go to the Steam Breath Dragon, which is of course grade 1 Wiki Power, Chrono Edition, which just like similar to all the other Steam Breath Dragon, count hand, when this card would be discarded for a cost for your G unit, you can discard this card from a grade 0 to 3, which is also included for the cost of Stride of course, so typical Stride fodder, and it is nice that you could even use this in the original deck for that part. It's just too bad you won't because of the next skill where auto when placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard's Chrono icon, you get all the following. Cost Counterblast 1, look at top 7 cards of your deck to choose up to one grade 3 card from among them, reveal it and put it in your hand, of course shuffle your deck, and if you do not reveal a card, you countercharge 1, nice that you still get something back if you fail, and if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3, this card gives us 5 keep pounding in turn. Stride fodder that also searches and can also be attacker or booster, which you might actually do sometimes to combo off of one of your other cards. And then we go to Steam Fighter Amber, Chrono Edition. Grade 2, attack your power on the skills. Auto, when placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is a Chrono icon, cost Counterblast 1, draw a card, and then if your Vanguard is at least grade 3, get plus 5 key power as well. Nice that you can use this in the early game, so it does make it a little more useful. With the second skill, Counter Rearguard Guardian, Generation Break 1, if your Vanguard is Chrono icon, plus 5 key power and 5 key shield as well. So defensive card and also a big beater on its own, which could be also added big beater on your grade 3 turn, but also early game draw. Not bad, but I could definitely still see other better cards to be played other than this one. And then we got the Chrono Icon Upstream Dragon, which is grade 2 at taking power on the skills. Auto drop, when your at least grade 3 Vanguard Chrono Icon is placed, costs either Counterblast 1 or Genie Blast 3 to call this to rearguard. So far the deck doesn't really use energy, and also you're going to be using this through Stride. With the second skill where Auto rearguard, when this card attacks, if your Vanguard is at least a grade 3 Vanguard Chrono Icon, you may have this card get plus 5 key pounding in a battle, and if you do, at the end of battle, put this to the bottom deck and insert your deck for up to one grade 1 Chrono Icon and call it to the back row rearguard and shuffle your deck, but if it's the first battle of the turn and your Vanguard is at least grade 3, you may call it to the front row instead. This is definitely way better than the original one and even just the Encounter one overall. For one, it could call back itself. Two, you also can get one additional attack from it if it's the first battle. It's just kind of unfortunate that you can't play this with the Encounter version. But speaking of encounters, there are ways to actually make combos with the Encounter version of the strides for this. And also keep in mind, this version of Upstream is not restricted to Generation Break, meaning you can actually use this in your early game as well, even if you're actually still on grade 3. But a definite must run 4-up for the deck. And then we got the Chrono Edition Steam Fighter Ballith, which is grade 3 with turkey power and skills. Auto when discard from hand for a cost of Stride. If you have no rearguards with the same card name as this one, you may call this a rearguard. And if you do, this card gets grade -2 until the end turn, which will make it become a grade 1. And it's nice that it's a discard fodder that calls itself. And it's also nice that it's not restricted to Chrono Icon, meaning that you can actually use this with any other Stride deck. But the next skill requires Chrono Icon because Auto Rearguard Generation Break 1, when this card attacks, if your Vanguard is a Chrono Icon, this card gets was 10 keep pounding in a battle, which makes it also a big beater, which is also very nice. But also count Guardian, if your Vanguard's Chrono Icon, this card also gets plus 10k shield, which is just very nice, being a big beater, discard fodder, and also big shield if you need it. Definitely worth running for the Chrono Icon deck. And now to your new Chrono Icon Stride, starting off with Chrono Dragon Nextage. This normally would be the second Stride, but for this deck it could be either. So it has the generic Stride stats, once again as a reminder, grade 4 with 15k plus power with the triple drive ability, and it has the generic Stride cost unlike the Encounter one, but unfortunately you can only stride this card on top of a Chrono Icon. But anyway, its main ability is Auto Vanguard. At the end of battle, this card attacks a Vanguard, cost Counterblast 1, discard card from hand, turn a copy of itself that also has a Chrono Icon from your G-Zone face up, and put this to your G-Zone face up, and then choose one of your Chrono Icon Vanguards and stand it with a drive -2. And then cost buying a Chronojet from your hand or drop, and that unit also gets a drive +1 into the end turn. But if your G-Zone has at least 3 face-up cards, drive +2 instead. Basically, unlike the Encounter one where it has to be second Stride, you can now do the restand on the first Stride. And because you're using this on first Stride, while also flipping another copy of itself during first Stride, technically you are automatically at GB2 the minute that you actually use this. So there is a huge upside right here with this new Nextage already, although with a drive -2 unless if you're able to bind a Chronojet, because a drive -2 means 0 drive checks for your Vanguard. So meaning that on the second Stride, it can technically get its full drive checks back as long as you're able to bind the Chronojet. And because you're riding back into regular Chronojet, you also get the power from Chronojet Chrono Icon skill. And it's also very nice that you could actually restand any of your grade 3s besides Chronojet Dragon, but you need to get the bonus with the Chronojet. So in many ways it's just better than the original just because of timing reasons, but also a little more restrictions. And then we got the return of Interdimensional Dragon Mystery Flare Dragon. which also has the generic stride stats and condition, and can only be stride on top of Chrono icons, which also makes this card as the first and second stride due to the skills of act Vanguard once per turn, cost turn a face down card from your G zone face up, and then perform all the following. Into the end of your opponent's next turn, you get this skill. All your front row units get plus 5k power, and then choose one of your rear guards, and it gets this skill into the end turn. Auto rear guard, when your Vanguard attacks, stand this unit. So another way to get one additional attack, which is pretty nice, and also the power up lasts on your opponent's turn as well, which is also very huge. Which makes this as a pretty usable first stride, but it also has the additional ability where it references the original Mystery Flare, where if your G zone has at least 5 face up cards face up into the end turn, this card gets this skill. Auto Vanguard, at the end of all this unit attacked, cost discard 4 cards with different grades from your hand, you get 1 additional turn, and during that additional turn you skip your ride phase and cannot stride. So yeah, bringing back Mystery Flare's original turn skipping ability, which is very huge, and also less restricted than the original because the original one requires you to have the top 4 cards of your deck revealed with different grades, on top of it being Counterblast 4. And also I love the additional attack part, which is also very nice. Unfortunately, of course, no strides for the next turn, but that could be a little too OP, so it is understandable. But basically, it's a workable first stride, just like Chrono Dragon Nextage, and can also be used as your finish stride, but basically finisher if your Chrono Dragon Nextage doesn't do the job. And combining it with the turn skip and upstream, technically that's a total of 9 attacks that your opponent has to guard with. So pretty awesome that they brought this card back. And then finally we got our legend rare upgrades that could also be turned into silver rares, which also includes triggers and the PGs, which I'm actually quite excited about. Hopefully they do that to the start decks as well. And also here are the higher rarities of our boss units, which is pretty awesome. Really reminds me about GRs back in the day. And next week we got the Dual Nation units, which I'm actually quite excited for, especially wondering how they're going to do it just because they're actually old units from the past combined into one card. And so that's it for the new Chrono Icon ride line. What do you guys think of it? Overall, I kind of like it. It is basically a combination of the V counterpart with the G counterpart, having the main grade 3 with the ability to let you stride, but still using the stride mechanic, and still retaining its old skills from the original. I just kind of don't like that most of the cards are just restricted to Chrono Icon, but it is awesome that you could actually use the old Encounter stuff to put into the deck, because those don't even really require the Chrono Icon, besides the Chronojet part. But it is also kind of unfortunate that Crest is not included, meaning that there are going to be restrictions on what you can actually put in, because a lot of the Chronojet cards require you to have the Crests. Although one thing you can definitely do is probably mix in with the strides, because the Encounter strides are still usable with the deck, although I'm not sure if you're really going to stride them or not, because the Chrono Icon ones are definitely better than the original Encounter ones. But still more options, and you still got the max 16 card G zone. But on that, that's it for this, and see you all next time.